morning and welcome to Wednesday at 10, our midweek get together for news, views and a little worship. We always start on a Wednesday with news, and last week we heard, as you will all be aware now, that our churches can reopen again after such a long time of being closed. They have to be opened in a restricted manner, and we can open again on a Sunday from the 5th of July. Not every church will open. It depends on whether you have the people power to be able to do that. But we will certainly be reopening at Holy Trinity Church in Weymouth. Well, many of us were delighted to hear the news that we can open our great west doors again. But I realise only too well that there will be some of you who feel the time is not ready yet to venture out and to be present with us. And I think I speak probably for many priests who will want to say to you that is certainly okay. In your time, when you feel ready and safe to do so, we will be waiting for you. For those members of Holy Trinity with St. Nicholas who are planning to come next Sunday, please make sure you book via the telephone number provided in the letter I sent out to all members of the electoral roll, leaving your name and telephone number. And if you're watching this and not on the electoral roll, the idea is to phone a number, to leave your name and book for either the 8 o'clock or the 10 o'clock service. We can seat up to 30 people. We have done all the necessary risk assessments and put all the strategies in place to welcome you back, but we do so only by a telephone booking system, and you will be checked in by the stewards at the main doors of the church, and you will be shown to your seats, and we ask you to remain in those seats throughout the service. I'll be presiding to both of the services at Holy Trinity at 8 and 10 on Sunday. And we will continue, as we have been for many months now, receiving spiritual communion. That means that the priest will receive the sacred elements of bread and wine and receive those on your behalf. The other things I want to tell you about if you're coming on Sunday is to make sure that you take a pew sheet home with you. Slightly different to our normal pew sheet. You will have the pew sheet with your readings one side, and on the other side is printed the order of service for the Holy Eucharist. Those of you to take away, please don't leave them behind. Take them home with you. Similarly, your offerings we want to take from you, strangely enough, and we ask you to please put your envelopes or any offering of money in the box provided near the stewards as you enter the church door. Well, sadly, there is no provision for music or choir quite yet. But we will be playing music over the sound system as you quietly and prayerfully prepare for the service. Similarly, there is no provision yet been given for Sunday school, for servers and acolytes to resume their duties on a Sunday. But as soon as we have an update on that, I will feed back to all of you. But we are missing you, and we want everyone to be back together again. So, I look forward to seeing those of you who feel able to come next Sunday morning physically in church after such a long time. But I want you to know, if you don't feel you can come, that I will be continuing to do the Sunday Eucharists on video for you to watch in your homes. So I shall be doing that, I think, certainly for the foreseeable future. Our Wednesday at 10 gathering will be today the last one we have until the 29th of July. So there won't be any Wednesday at 10 after today until the 29th of July. And then I shall be back again sharing, I'm sure, lots and lots more news. Well, now for other news. There won't be a parish magazine for Holy Trinity Church for July and August, as there is little to report. We have very few, or none really, social events going on at the moment, and we will hopefully be having our magazine again in October, November. But this will be largely down to all of you. We need you to send in to us articles for the magazine. Please send them to Jeff Pritchard, our magazine editor, or you can send them to the parish office or to me, and I can forward them on to Jeff. Anything that you think that may be newsworthy and of interest to our parishioners. You all must have things you want to tell us about. Perhaps you would like to write about your experiences during lockdown. Perhaps tell us about things you have learnt to do differently in the last few months. We want to know. As I say, anything that you think may be of interest to you. And we look forward to the magazine, hopefully, being produced again in the autumn. Now for some more news. I've received a plea from Sherry Clark, who is the coordinator for Refresh, representing the church in Weymouth and Portland. The request has come from the Lantern Centre in Weymouth. Now, we've been supporting the centre as a church for some years already, but the Lantern Centre are looking for members of our churches to coordinate some meal support for those who are homeless and rough sleeping in the area. Those who have been housed, as you know, in bed and breakfast accommodation in the town because of COVID-19, that provision for homing them, giving them temporary accommodation has now come to an end, and the funding is no more. So the homeless and rough sleepers are now out and about again. So the Lantern has been asked to support 2 hostels, one on Portland and one in Swanage, and they are being opened as temporary accommodation. Could anyone provide a weekly meal for 6 people, preferably on the same evening each week? The hostel on Portland, I understand, has good kitchen facilities, so if you weren't able to cook a meal at home, you could certainly go in to the hostel and cook a meal there for 6 people. If you can't deliver, we can arrange delivery for you from your home or to the Lantern Centre, and we will organise transport to the hostel. So if you can help, please call the Lantern Centre directly. Well, this Sunday, 13 of our soon-to-be curates will be licensed online as lay workers. Lockdown and the present government restrictions have meant that the ordinations to the diaconate that would have normally taken place this weekend at Petertide have been postponed until September. Petertide is the Sunday nearest to St. Peter's Day on the 29th of June. More about the feast of St. Peter and St. Paul a little bit later. So the virtual licensing will allow the 13 who were to be ordained deacons to start work in their parishes, where they will eventually serve as assistant curates. They will be licensed as lay workers until September. The service will take place on Zoom with Bishop Nicholas at his home in the South Canonry. And the 13 candidates in their parishes, and Bishop Karen and Bishop Andrew and the Dean, and our 4 archdeacons also attending, but also in their homes via Zoom. Interesting times. James Thomas and Lizzie Peacock will shortly be joining us at Holy Trinity Church. James as our Director of Music, and Lizzie, his wife, who will assist him, have been producing some, I hope you will agree, some lovely music that you will have been hearing and you will hear more of over the weeks as we prepare to hear them live at church services and concerts. Lizzie is a fabulous harpist, and you will be hearing from her on the harp and singing on some of the videos in the next few weeks. If you or your family are planning a future wedding or celebration and you would like to engage Lizzie as the harpist at the wedding, let us know at the church office, or contact us by filling in the form on the church contact page, or in fact contacting Lizzie directly. If you look up Lizzie Peacock on the website, you will find her there. And if you'd like to book either of them, James or Lizzie, for organ or piano lessons, singing lessons, contact us here at the parish office. And of course, our details are all on the church website, www.holytrinityweymouth.org. Well, that's all the news for now, and by the time Wednesday at 10 resumes on the 29th of July, we will have, I'm sure, plenty of news for all of you. We're going to have 2 hymns today in our Wednesday at 10 slot. The first one now. So over to James and Lizzie.
Good morning, everybody. A slightly different angle for the introduction this morning. And our hymn is We Love the Place, O God. And it's 160 in the Red Books.
thank you for that first hymn this morning. Well, last Monday was the 29th of June, the day the Church celebrates annually the great feast of the martyrdom of the apostles Peter and Paul. And the Church's tradition teaches us that they both died martyrs in Rome during the persecution of Nero in AD 64. Paul beheaded by a sword, and Peter was crucified, similar to our Lord, but with his head pointing downwards. These most famous of all the apostles also have their own feast days, as I'm sure you will know. Peter on January the 18th, when we remember his great confession of Jesus the Messiah. And for St. Paul on January the 25th, when we commemorate his conversion to the Christian faith. Well, I've been thinking and reading a little bit recently about Turkey. And over the last few weeks, I have learnt quite a bit about modern Turkey and what is happening there. It's a wonderful country where I have visited several times over the years. It is where East meets West, and where I have spent many hours, particularly walking along the banks of the beautiful Bosphorus. But alas, it was many years ago, in the 80s and 90s, that I first visited. Of course, you will know Istanbul better, perhaps, by its old name, Constantinople. It was the centre of Eastern Christianity and the place where the word Christian was first coined. St. Paul spent most of his ministry in Ephesus, in Turkey, the most fascinating and historical place to visit. If you've never been, it really is a place to go. And here in this place, in Ephesus, St. Paul equipped the early Christians through his epistles and letters, which we find in the New Testament of the Bible. And in those letters or epistles, we find Paul writing and supporting the Christian church in Galatia, Colossia, and of course Ephesus itself. But all these places today are known to be part of modern Turkey. The great Hagia Sophia Church in the centre of Istanbul is a wonderful, wonderful building with Christian frescoes of Jesus with his mother littering the domes, but which had been used as a mosque for many years until it became a museum in 1935. And it's been preserved as a museum until recently. Now, in 2020, it is said that the government are trying to turn the Hagia Sophia Church into a mosque again. Once the centre of Christianity, now a place of persecution for Christians. So I ask you to pray for the persecuted Christians in Turkey today, and for the prayers of St. Paul upon them. So back to the 29th of June, as we commemorate both St. Peter and St. Paul. We, by tradition, as we've already alluded to in our news today, we, on this weekend, annually ordain new deacons and priests in all our dioceses. It recalls for me the day I was ordained on the 29th of June in Chichester Cathedral back in 1986. And I remember at this time I have been ordained for 34 years. Where does the time go? Well, I hope that in that time I have served God to the best of my ability, And I have certainly seen the Church of England change rapidly, as many of you will have, I'm sure. Some for the better and some not. And I can only share my opinions with you, and they are mine alone. Others may not agree with me. But for me, I'm quite sad that the Church has sidelined so much of that which was beautiful in liturgy, the Book of Common Prayer, and particularly the Eucharist, and again replaced it for things which attempts to attract new people in modern all-worship, singing and dancing services, but which does not seem to attract people to come into the real presence of God, but rather, it seems to me, into a social gathering. And in my opinion, beautiful, dignified liturgy, wonderfully presented with choral music, takes people out of their humdrum lives and sets them on higher things in order to send them out into the world uplifted and refreshed. I mean, the word worship means worship, giving God the very best we can in our worship. And I find some of the modern do-it-yourself worship where everybody does something and the priest does very little to be far from what I have known as worship. But as I'm told, I'm old-fashioned these days. So today we must continue to pray for the Church in all its ways and those who will lead it in years to come as we remember the great apostles Peter and St. Paul. Peter and Paul definitely are examples to us in this present age, a world which desperately needs martyrs and witnesses to the life and love of God. These apostles disagreed about the Christian mission, but their commitment to Christ and the proclamation of his gospel proved stronger than their differences. Perhaps they offer an image of unity in diversity. Well, martyrdom is a choice. It is less about how we die and more about how and for whom we live. Amen. Well, now we're going to have our second hymn this morning. And after the hymn, we will have our prayers. I hope that God will bless you. And don't forget, you'll see a notice at the end of this broadcast to tune in again on a Wednesday on the 29th of July.
Good morning. It's time for the hymn again. And this morning's hymn is 163. Happens to be my favourite hymn. Angel Voices Ever Singing, to the tune of Angel Voices. It's a cracker, this.
Rest not day nor night.
you.